This is Damian Macy. I'm with the Friends of the Marshall Public Library for our oral history project. It is Wednesday, June the 10th of 2015, and I'm here at the library with our friend Richard Smitley. And with that, I'll introduce Richard and let him speak. Rick, you're on.
Okay. When and where were you born? I was born in Marshall in May the 10th, 1933. I was born at home, and my parents are Mary Elizabeth Forbeck Smitley, and my father's name was Robert Smitley.
I think, Dick, you had a few brothers and sisters too, didn't you?
Yes, I had 6 sisters and 4 brothers, and I was next to the youngest. The youngest in the family was my sister Ida, and she passed away 2 years ago. So I'm the only living, of all the siblings. I'm the only one still living. And I've lived in Marshall for 82 years. I just had a birthday May the 10th. I was 82 years old. What was your neighborhood like? Well, it was like all the neighborhoods back then, Damien, were, everybody was, it was during the Depression. And then after that, it was first the Second World War, and then the Korean War, and then the Vietnam War. But back then, everybody worked together. We had victory gardens. We had, everybody worked, when I was a kid, I used to mow yards and haul cobs. People, started fires with the cobs back then, believe it or not. And I delivered papers. I was a paper boy, and just anything, we all us kids, Dad told us kids, said, if you want anything out of life, get out and work for it. Nobody will get, back then we didn't look for a handout or, we didn't have anything like that back then. So we all, just went out and find work wherever we could, and we worked hard.
Dick, where did you get the corn cobs from?
From Newberry's. They had and then there was also a place there across from VFW. There was a mill there that we used to get cobs from there too.
That was called the Marshall Co-op.
Yes.
Because my dad managed that for several years.
Oh, I'm darn. Yeah. And then Newberry's was up there, right there at the corner. Of course, it's not there anymore. But I remember we used to get 10 cents a sack out of it. Of course, back then, Anyhow, I went to school, South School. And from there, I graduated and went to Marshall High School. And spent 4 years in Marshall High School and graduated in 1951. And after I got out of high school, I decided, a friend of mine, Jim Baker, and I decided to go to Indianapolis and look for a job because they were hiring. Several companies were hiring in Indianapolis, and his mother lived in Indianapolis, so we stayed there while we were out job hunting. But they told all of us, said, you guys are draft age, we can't hire you. So we decided to join the Navy. So the funny thing is, I wasn't very big back then, and I always wanted to play football. So in high school, but I wasn't big enough to play football, so I ended up a cheerleader for 2 years in high school. And that might be interesting to some people. But anyhow, when I went to join the Navy, the recruiter, I was getting ready to take a physical, and the recruiter said, you only weigh 105 pounds. That's exactly what I weighed. He said, if you weighed a pound left, I wouldn't let you in.
Really?
That's exactly what he told me. I'll never forget that. Anyhow, I went ahead and joined. Went to Great Lakes. Went through boot camp in Great Lakes.
That was probably an enjoyable time, wasn't it?
Not really. Anyhow, after boot camp, we were all transferred. A bunch of us were transferred to San Diego for what they call an advanced boot camp. It was a pre-commission training. we were going to put a ship in commission up in Bremerton, Washington. So they sent us to San Diego for a pre-commission training. We were there another 6 weeks on top of our boot camp. It was like an advanced boot camp is what it was. But our ship was waiting in Bremerton, Washington. So we were transferred to Bremerton, Washington. That's where we put our ship in commission. It was a heavy cruiser. And the name of the ship is USS Baltimore, believe it or not. Baltimore, it was named after, of course, Baltimore, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
That was their namesake. Of all things.
It wasn't quite as infamous then as it is today, right?
Well, it was built back in the early 30s. It was built in and saw some World War II action. Actually, it did. As a matter of fact, President Roosevelt was aboard there for one time for a meeting with some other dignitaries. Anyhow, when we put the ship in commission, we went down the coast, went through Panama Canal, and went down to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba for what they call a shakedown cruise. And we had various operations. We shot at sleds that were drawn by different ships, and then we shot at sleeves that were, planes were, had these sleeves behind them that we were shot at the sleeves, and even drones. They had drones back then. So they had, they had drones that would come down towards the ship, and as soon as we hit them, of course, the parachute would come out, and we picked them up, and we were able to reuse them. But I started out on the deck division on that ship, and that's about as low as you can get. Anyhow, there were 7 deck divisions, and had a junior officer come up to me one day, and I was up on deck doing a lot of work, and he came up and he said, Smitley, can you type? And I said, yes, I can. I took typing in high school. He said, I think I got a job for you. So he put me in the gunnery office. And I spent the next 3.5 years in the gunnery office, in the Fox division. Yep.
Thank goodness for typing.
I used to cut stencils. You ever heard of that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we used to cut stencils. That's how we made copies of all our Plan of the Day and all that stuff.
Had that nice juicy ink that went into the drum and squeezed out through the stencil.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's how I got into there. And our home port for 3 years was in Boston. That was our home port. We went from Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. After our shakedown cruise, we went to Boston. From there, we went to our first cruise. Was a Mediterranean cruise. That was our first one. Went to Gibraltar and, oh gosh, we went all over the Mediterranean. Went to Italy and Spain and France. One of our cruises, we had went to Rome and had an audience with the Pope.
Oh.
A bunch of Catholic sailors got together and had a audience with the Pope.
Now, when you say, Dick, you went on a cruise, that's not like the cruise that we think of today, is it?
No. We had in the 6th Fleet, at which we were all the time. We were in the Mediterranean. We were in the 6th Fleet, and we always had a flag on board, what they call an admiral. So we had a detachment of 40 Marines, which was looked after the flag. Of course, that was a procedure back then. There was a detachment of 40 Marines on there. Plus, there was about total, and we had a helicopter crew on there also. So probably total around pretty close to, our full complement was around 2,000 on the ship.
That's about half the size of Marshall.
Yeah, right. So that was our first cruise. And then we come back to Boston, and then the next year we made our second cruise, which was in 1953. What just happened, that was the year that Queen Elizabeth was coronated. So we represented the United States.
Wow.
Our ship was among about 24 different nations that were lined up in Spithead Bay. When the Queen come by, of course, we all manned the rail, and the Queen come by and review. Yeah. And then at night, we had lights all over the ship. It was decorated with lights, and then also they had fireworks off all the ships at night. I should have brought my cruise ship, my cruise.
You didn't get to meet the Queen though, did you?
No, we saw her go by the
Great.
ship. Yeah, there was oh gosh, as far as you could see in Spithead Bay, and this Russian ship was there, and there's, like I said, there was 24 different countries altogether. I should have brought my my cruise book up and showed you. It's interesting. Got a picture of her with her. It wasn't a ship. She went by it. It was like a. Well, you'd have to see it to see what it was. Anyhow, that was quite a memorial time for us. And then the next cruise, we went to Scandinavian cruise. We went to Norway, Denmark, Sweden. That was really interesting. And Damien, if you've never been to any of those countries, that is the cleanest.
I have been.
Oh my goodness, you could eat supper off those streets. Oh, especially, I'm trying to think which country it was. It was just, we couldn't believe how clean it was. But anyhow, total, then after our 3 cruises, Mediterranean cruises and our Scandinavian cruise, we came back to Boston, and then we went back through the Panama Canal over to the East Coast, or the West Coast rather. So we had another cruise, and it was up to Japan, Okinawa, Philippines.
What country impressed you the most?
Spain.
Spain? And what?
I don't know,
what
just
about-
something about it, just the landscape and the people there. And I saw my first bullfight in Spain. I couldn't sit through it. Buddy and I went, it was so gory and it's terrible. To see that bull running around and blood squirting out of him. Oh, matter of fact, we left. We couldn't take it. Buddy and I went over to, when we were on Liberty, we went over to this bullfight. But
I think that's true of a lot of people. They think it's big excitement, but find it's just not quite it for them. And is that now outlawed?
you know, I'm not sure.
I'm not
whether
sure
it's
either.
right.
I was thinking they were wanting to do that for a while back, but I'm not sure. Yeah, some interesting things there.
Yeah. Anyhow, after the cruise over in the Far East cruise, then I was discharged, came back home, and I went to work at the quarry for Ralph Montgomery first. And it's a funny story about this, Damien. Ralph was in terrible financial condition, real bad. He just, that place just, he asked his employees just to wait a day or two till they collected money, you know, to be able to make a payroll. Anyhow, I worked in the office there, and he was low on dynamite one day, and he asked me, he said, Dick, he said, would you get in the truck and go down and ask Tarbles if I could borrow some dynamite? And I thought, oh my God, what am I doing? They're our competitor. So I got in the truck and went down there, and Dean Murphy met me, and, hi Dick, how are you? What do you need? I said, well, Ralph's out of dynamite. He wondered if he could borrow about 12 or 15 cases of dynamite. Well, sure, heck yeah. So I got the dynamite and come back, and Ralph said, of course, he's drunk all the time. Just drank completely. Oh, he was just drank whiskey all the time. Anyhow, he said, you mean they let you have that dynamite? And I said, yes. Call him out and tell him I want to talk to him. So I called Van Tarble, the old man. I don't know whether you remember him or not.
Vaguely, yeah.
He come up, and next thing I knew, they bought him out. So that's where I worked for the next 40 years.
Where was that? Was the quarry up on the north side where the housing development is now? Okay, that's what I thought. Was it called?
It was called
Something-
Ralph E. Montgomery Rock Crusher.
Okay.
That was the name of it.
Rock Crusher.
It was actually the deposit was called Livingston Limestone.
Okay.
That's what it was called. And then when they got all that worked out, we went down to the south, and I ended up. Most of the time I worked in the office. I was on the road a lot with sales and marketing, and I was also in charge of accounts receivable. I did a lot of bill collecting, and customer service. Other than that, and then I got into politics in let's see, what year was it? 1973. I was approached to run for city council down in Ward 3, where I live. And I said, my goodness, I don't know anything about politics. I said, I'm not sure. But I was elected for 4 terms. I served 14 years in the 3rd Ward on the city council. And while in office, Ted Treves died of a heart attack. And so I served his following, he had 2 years left on his term. So I finished up his 2 years. Then I got reelected. I ran for office against Earl Turner. I beat Earl Turner. And then I ran against Bud Bloodsworth, and I beat Bud Bloodsworth. So a total of 10 years I served as mayor.
With the death of Ted, were you appointed then to that, or was there an special election?
Election. The
become
councilmen
mayor?
had to vote. They
Okay,
voted,
I wasn't sure how that transfer took place.
And another thing I'm proud of, when I first took over as a mayor, of course I was mayor, I guess at Mayor Pro Tem or whatever they call it. Anyhow, we never had a flag in the city hall.
Really?
Never.
Okay.
So I said the first thing we're going to do is get a flag, and we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance for every meeting.
Good.
And today they still do
Still
it.
do it.
I'm the one that started that. I was so proud of that.
Did anyone ever say why they had never done that? Just no one
No.
had thought of it, or?
Just nobody ever thought of it.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, but that's a lot of people don't know that. But that was my first duty after I was appointed mayor, or elected mayor. And that was my first duty, was to get that flag up in front of that.
Well, it's been a long-lasting one.
Yeah. And then I went ahead, after I got out of politics, I just went ahead and worked till, let's see, I retired in 1998, after 40 years with Quality Lime Company.
Now, during your period of mayor, you continued to work, though, full-time
Yes.
at the
Yes.
quarry, didn't you?
I had a good staff that really helped me out. George Smith and Steve Calhoun, John Treves, they had a real good office staff. They were very, they helped me through that way I didn't have to spend that much time up at the office. I generally go up there and open my mail and then go in there after work.
Did you find things changed a lot just during the time that you were mayor in managing the city?
Well, not really. I think we had some problems with the union when they wanted it, because I don't think the police force wasn't in the union when I first took over, but they got their own union now. They're separate from the workers. There's 2 different unions. But other than that, why, we got along real well. when I went out of office, my goodness, I think we had just built a new city hall, didn't raise anybody's utility rates or anything, and I think we had $3 or $4 million in bank drawn interest, and didn't have that many bonds to pay off. Even today, Damien, we got around $9 million in the bank, and we've only got a little over $1 million in bonds that are due. But we're better off to let that $9 million draw interest. We're making more than, in other words, we're ahead rather than to pay the, you know.
Our city is totally blessed, I think, with the fact that they have had such good fiscal responsibility over the years.
Some stories I want to tell you about. Back then, when they were considering, the state was going to make us put in they were going to make us divide our sewage with the regular water. What do I want to say? Our sewage. They wanted to break it. In other words, they want to make it separate. So.
Is that the storm sewers?
From the storm sewers separate from sanitary sewers. Okay. They want to separate those. Mm-hmm. What's going to cost? That was going to cost us. They estimated $2 to $3 million. So we kept. There was some guy in Springfield did not like George Smith. He said, as long as George Smith is in Marshall, you'll never have your lagoons. The lagoons was the cheapest thing we could have. So one day they called a meeting up in Mattoon, I believe it was. But anyhow, the guy that was ordinarily would have been there was absent for some reason. There's some woman took his place, and Richard Bernardoni and Steve Calhoun and George Smith and myself, of course, Richard was city attorney then. We all went to Mattoon to meet with this woman that was representing the state. The first thing she said was, "Have you guys ever considered a lagoon?" We all fainted. We said, "That's what we've been trying to get." And it cost us around $200,000 to $300,000, which we saved. Well, we saved about $2 million, and it's worked great ever since.
Was there question of why? Had you ever thought of that? Was they directing some of the standards we had to follow? Is that their position, or?
That's a good question. I think there was a lot of personal. What I want to say, something personal against this guy in Springfield and George Smith for some reason. I don't know what the problem was, but anyhow, we got our lagoons. It sure saved us a lot of money.
Was there some grants or anything available to help with that?
Yes, sure. Yeah, we had somebody applying for grants all the time.
You mentioned one thing that I was quite interested that you mentioned was the finally realizing a new city hall. What all kind of led up to that and kind of spearheaded that?
Well, the old one, was upstairs. And then we moved it downstairs. And we just decided that, and the council went along with it, that we needed a new city hall. So we eventually got it and didn't have any problem. Everybody was for it. And that's how we build our new city hall.
Was that land where the new city hall is? I assume it was purchased outright. It wasn't donated or anything.
No, we had to buy it. I forget now who owned that. It used to be years ago. There was a
like a lumber yard.
There, mm-hmm. Yeah.
I remember that.
Central Lumber Company was the name of it.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
So was there any conflicts or difficulties in getting that city hall built?
None at all.
That's great.
Everybody, we didn't have any objections of any kind.
I knew you had several meetings and all on it, trying to kind of keep people up to date on what was happening.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So did you ever miss some of those days of City Hall and
Sure.
Mayor?
Oh yeah, I do. It was interesting and it was rewarding. When you sit back and see all the things we accomplished, it was very rewarding. The fact that I was able to be a part of that, makes you feel good.
By the same token, are you saying, maybe it's kind of be glad to be out of the politics too?
Sometimes. Some of the things are going on up there now. It's ridiculous. The way the conflict they have up there between a couple people in the council that just don't seem to me, I don't know. They don't have the best interest of the city in mind, I don't think.
I agree, we won't get into all of that on the tape, but I just wondered if you probably kind of said, gosh, I'm glad I'm not there today.
Yeah. But I miss that, you know. That's when back then everybody worked together and we didn't have the.
Looking back, are there any particular people, a teacher, or any individual that you say, boy, really influenced my life or helped guide me along in some of their philosophies?
Well, let's see. Of course, football was my favorite game. I mean, the football coaches, they had a big influence on me. Because I always wanted to play football, and I wasn't big enough, so I I was a cheerleader for 2 years. I wanted to get as close to the game as I could, so I went out for cheerleader and served for 2 years as cheerleader. Football. Back then they had separate cheerleader for basketball and football. So anyhow, I enjoyed that because I was able to get close to the game. You know, didn't actually play in the game, but I got close to it.
Right there's a field, and there you are. Huh?
Yeah. And even after I was elected mayor, they let me on the football field.
That's right.
So I got to cheer and run up and down the. I'll never forget the game we played. This is a good one. We played Watsika on a Saturday afternoon. I don't know why they scheduled Watsika, but anyhow, my niece, Steve and Debbie Quick, they were from Watsika. And one of their boys, as freshmen, was on the team, Watsika's team. Of course, I was up there and I was running up and down the field. And somebody on the Watsika's side said, "Who is that guy running up and down the field?" Debbie said, "That's my uncle. He's a mayor." I'll never forget that.
Well, it expressed your loyalty,
And we won the game. We weren't supposed to.
Okay.
No, we were not favored at all. They had a lot better team, but we won.
Dick, I remember you mentioned earlier here about the getting of the flag in the City Hall and the pledge, and I know you have been very outstanding in your wearing of patriotic ties.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that's kind of instilled that allegiance? Was it the Navy service?
It started back when we were kids, and we all worked together. We had victory gardens. We used to take tin cans to school and put them in a big round. They had wire. Well, I don't know what to call them. Baskets.
Like a cage, like
wire cages around where we put all the tin cans in there, and we bought victory bonds back then. And you know, for a quarter you could buy a stamp for a little booklet we had, and then you trade them in and for a bond after you got the little booklets. But that's what started back when, you know, everybody back then was very patriotic, and we all had victory guards, and we all helped each other, and you know, it was all that old saying, you know, remember Pearl Harbor, and that's all as kids. Of course, I carried papers. I'm going to get that in there. I was a paper boy.
Was there some particular event over the years that's really kind of changed your attitudes or your thoughts, or something that's really changed your way of thinking?
Well, I think, of course, everybody back then is very patriotic, and that was just instilled in everybody. You know, everybody worked together, and gosh, you know, just to be involved in anything that would help the country, you know, and it's just instilled in you that, and it's with me today even. I mean, that's something that I just I'll, it's just been that I've been that way all my life. I don't, and
Would you elaborate just a little bit? Your mother was a fascinating person. I always thought so much of her, and I know she loved music and all of these things. Would you just kind of elaborate a little bit on your memories of her?
she was a very special person. I remember she used to go to church every morning. Back then they had mass every day. She used to go to church every morning. She's she's a firm believer, and that's what got me started. And I'll tell you another story. You may not want to remember this, but my father was anti-Catholic. She had to sneak some of us kids to church because he did not want us to be Catholics. So the Smitleys were, his side of the family was very anti-Catholic.
Didn't know that.
And guess what? When he was on his deathbed, Georgie Connerton lived next door to us. Did you ever hear the story?
No. I knew she lived next door.
Well, when Dad was on his deathbed, Mom was in there and she called Georgie over. Her mom and Georgie were just like her.
Yeah.
Georgie said, "Bob, do you want to be baptized?" He was never baptized. He said, "Bob, do you want to be baptized?" He was baptized by desire by Georgie Connerton on his deathbed. That's honest to God truth. And I was outside scared to death, crying. And my pet dog, just as soon as Dad passed away, that dog started howling. I mean, he howled. It's the strangest thing.
They say that the animals can sense.
I know if that
different
happened.
situations.
That's I swear to God, that's what happened. That dog started howling. I thought, oh my God, Dad's died. But Georgie got him baptized before he passed away. He was baptized by desire, is what they call it.
Well, Georgie was a remarkable person.
Oh my goodness.
She was my second grade teacher
Oh my gosh.
at the Old North Side School.
Yeah.
And of course, she taught the catechism and all. So I've known her for years and years
She
too.
was. She was the. Of course, she lived next door to us there.
Nick, is there something in the way of maybe an invention or something that has really, you think, changed your life in such a, gosh, I just couldn't live without that?
Well, I'm trying to think. The thing that really instilled me to, as far as my life, is it seemed like I'm not satisfied at the end of the day if I haven't done something for somebody. I don't care whether it's help somebody cross the street or let somebody pull out in front of me. I thought, boy, I've done my duty. I've done God's work for the day. And I just, to this day, I still do that. I don't care what it is, whether it's open the door for somebody or let somebody pull out in front of me, on the highway or anything. It's just, I'm just not satisfied unless I do something for somebody. I don't care what it is. It's just, and I think I got that from my mother, really.
We hear so much today about all the things like road rage and everything has such a short fuse. I find that kind of disturbing. And just yesterday there was the article on the two ladies that got into the big scrap in Walmart store over by Indianapolis. I don't know if you saw that on the news or not, but they were fighting in the aisles. It just seems to me like the whole drift of people and their attitudes of other people has changed.
Yes,
and not for the better.
It really has. It's frightening to see some of these things that are happening, and you think, well, what's the matter with people? What changed their attitude?
Yeah.
What changed their mind? It's really sad that I don't know what the problem is, but something's gone wrong somewhere.
So are there some modern conveniences that you feel that you really would have and wouldn't want to live without?
No. I told somebody the other day, I said, I've got a typewriter, a cell phone, and an adding machine. That's all I need. That's all I want. I don't have anything else.
Is a typewriter an electric one? Mm-hmm. Okay.
I still use it every day.
Is the adding machine electric or one that you have to?
No, it's electric.
That shows how old I am too. Well, Dick, I've enjoyed visiting with you so much.
Well, thank you.
I think you filled in a lot of things that are going to be of interest to people, not only today, but somewhere down the line as they read these things and they're in the library. And just want to say thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you.
Well, I really
for
appreciated it.
inviting me.
And I think you've added some things to our history.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dave. Well, 35 minutes and 44 seconds.